because of nothing more than the color of their fur. Millions of cats were once worshipped, then feared for centuries. But the strangest part is, the cats themselves never changed. So what actually makes a cat black? Why did evolution keep this coat color for millions of years? Why were black cats once admired, only to become symbols of bad luck and superstition? And how do those ancient beliefs still shape the way people see black cats today? This isn't just the story of black cats. It's the story of how human beliefs changed, while the cats themselves remained exactly what they had always been: just cats. Chapter 1.1: Black Cats Aren't a Breed. When people hear the words black cat, many assume they're talking about a specific breed. But the truth is much simpler than that. According to organizations like the International Cat Association, or TICA, and the Cat Fanciers Association, known as CFA, black cat isn't the name of any breed. It's simply the term we use for cats whose coats happen to be black. From the cat's point of view, that label means almost nothing. A kitten doesn't know it's a black cat. It doesn't think about the color of its fur or see itself as different from any other cat. It simply explores its surroundings, practices hunting, learns what feels safe, and slowly builds trust with the people caring for it. That's the world a cat understands. Its personality isn't determined by the color of its coat. Instead, it's shaped by genetics, early life experiences, and the environment it grows up in. Those factors have a far greater influence on how confident, curious, social, or cautious a cat becomes than the color of its fur ever could. And that's the first thing we need to understand before we go any further. Black cats have never been a different kind of cat. They're simply cats wearing a different color. 2. What makes a cat's coat black? So, if black cats aren't a breed, what gives them their distinctive coat color? The answer lies in genetics. Studies on feline coat color have shown that a pigment called eumelanin is the primary reason a cat's fur appears black. The amount of this pigment, along with the way it's produced and distributed throughout the coat, is controlled by multiple genes working together. That's one of the reasons cats come in so many different colors and patterns. In simple terms, there's nothing mysterious about a black coat. It's simply the result of how a cat's body produces pigment. There isn't a good luck gene. There isn't a magic gene. And there's no scientific evidence that black fur makes a cat smarter, more aggressive, friendlier, or fundamentally different from cats of any other color. To the cat itself, it's simply the color of its coat. But to humans, that one completely ordinary trait changed the fate of millions of cats throughout history. A coat color created by biology eventually became a symbol of luck, fear, mystery, and superstition. And that's where our story really begins. 3. Black fur hides more than you think. If you've lived with a black cat long enough, you may have noticed something a little surprising. In bright sunlight, their coat doesn't always look completely black. Some black cats develop a reddish-brown tint. Others reveal faint stripes that seem to appear out of nowhere, even though you almost never notice them indoors. Those subtle stripes are known as ghost tabby markings, while the brownish color that sometimes appears after long exposure to sunlight is often called rusting. At first glance, it can seem as though your cat's coat is changing, but it isn't. These are completely natural effects caused by the way pigment is produced and how the fur reflects light, especially in cats with high levels of eumelanin. In other words, your cat isn't becoming a different color. You're simply noticing details that were there all along. Even a coat that looks simple at first glance is far more complex than most of us realize. But from evolution's point of view, it's all just biology. No hidden mystery. No supernatural meaning. Just another variation shaped by genetics over millions of years. So, if a black coat is simply the result of biology, why did evolution keep this color in the first place? That's where our story really begins. Chapter 2.1 When Darkness Became an Ally. Evolutionary biologists believe that dark-colored fur may have offered a camouflage advantage in certain low-light environments. For an ambush predator like a cat, getting just a few steps closer before being noticed could make the difference between a successful hunt and an empty stomach. That advantage would have been especially valuable at dawn, dusk, and during the night, the times when the ancestors of today's domestic cats were most active. Of course, a black coat wasn't a guarantee of success. A cat's hunting ability has always depended on many factors, including its vision, hearing, experience, and the environment around it. Coat color was only one small piece of a much larger system. That may also help explain why many house cats still become more energetic as evening approaches. They aren't trying to be mysterious, and they aren't drawn to darkness because of superstition. They're simply following behavioral patterns shaped by millions of years of evolution. But here's where the story becomes even more interesting. Some scientists have suggested that black fur may have offered more than just better camouflage. It may also have been linked to another possible evolutionary advantage, one that has less to do with hunting and perch. 2. Could black fur offer another advantage? What if a black coat did more than help a cat stay hidden? For years, researchers have been exploring a fascinating possibility. Some of the genes associated with black coat color in cats may also be linked to the immune system. That has led to an intriguing hypothesis. In certain wild cat populations, black-coated cats may have a greater ability to resist some infectious diseases. If that's true, black fur could offer an advantage beyond simply helping a cat stay hidden while hunting. It's an exciting idea. But there's an important reason scientists remain cautious. This is still an active area of research, and many questions have yet to be answered. At this point, there isn't enough scientific evidence to conclude that all black cats are healthier or live longer than cats with other coat colors. So if you share your home with a black cat, don't assume its coat color gives it superior health. The biggest factors affecting a cat's well-being are still the same as they've always been: a balanced diet, a safe environment, routine vaccinations, and regular veterinary care. In many ways, that's what makes science so fascinating. It encourages researchers to ask new questions and explore new possibilities. But it only accepts an idea as fact when the evidence is strong enough to support it. 3. Evolution only created a coat color. By now, you've probably noticed something important. From evolution's point of view, black fur was never a symbol of good luck or bad luck. It was simply a biological trait. A coat color shaped by genetics, refined through countless generations, and preserved because it may have offered certain advantages in specific environments. Nothing more. To the cat itself, that coat has never said anything about its personality, its intelligence, or its destiny. It doesn't make one cat kinder. It doesn't make another cat more dangerous. And it certainly doesn't decide whether a cat will bring fortune or misfortune to the people around it. Evolution only created a coat color. Everything else came from us, from the stories we told, the meanings we attached, and the beliefs we passed from one generation to the next. But here's what makes the history of black cats so surprising. People haven't always feared them. There was a time when that very same black coat was admired instead of avoided. It became a symbol of protection, good fortune, and even power. The cats were exactly the same. What changed was the meaning people attached to them. And to discover how an ordinary coat color earned such extraordinary meaning, we have to travel back thousands of years to one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known. Chapter 3.1 When Humans First Began to Admire Cats. Thousands of years ago, long before black cats became surrounded by superstition, there was a civilization that saw them in a completely different way. That civilization was ancient Egypt. Archaeologists have uncovered millions of cat mummies, along with countless statues, paintings, and carvings of cats inside temples and tombs. Together, these discoveries reveal just how important cats were in both the daily lives and spiritual beliefs of the ancient Egyptians. But that respect didn't begin because of a cat's coat color. It began because of what cats actually did. They hunted rats and mice that threatened grain stores, helping protect food supplies and reducing the spread of pests throughout growing communities. To the people of ancient Egypt, a cat was more than a pet. It was a protector. What's remarkable is that if you watch the cat living in your home today, you'll still see those same instincts at work. Every time your cat stalks a toy, quietly watches a bird outside the window, or suddenly pounces on something that moves, you're watching behaviors that have been passed down through countless generations. The very same instincts once earned cats the admiration of one of the greatest civilizations in human history. 2. What made cats so remarkable? The ancient Egyptians didn't admire cats because of superstition. They admired them because of what they actually did. As skilled predators, cats protected grain stores by hunting rats, mice, and other rodents. For a civilization that depended heavily on agriculture, protecting its food supply was essential to survival. That alone made cats incredibly valuable. But it wasn't the only reason people found them so remarkable. Cats also stood out because of their extraordinary patience, sharp awareness, and nearly silent movements. They could remain perfectly still for long stretches of time, carefully watching every tiny movement around them, then strike with incredible speed and precision at exactly the right moment. If you've ever watched your own cat sit quietly by a window for an hour, completely focused on a bird outside, or even a single leaf drifting through the air, you're witnessing the very same instincts that amazed people thousands of years ago. To your cat, it's nothing unusual. It's simply another ordinary day. But simply catching rodents probably wasn't enough to make an entire civilization hold cats in such high regard. So what transformed them from skilled hunters into animals worthy of admiration, protection, and, eventually, something even greater? 3. When respect became a symbol. When an animal repeatedly helps protect a community's harvest and food supply, people often begin to see it as more than just another animal. That's exactly what happened in ancient Egypt. What's especially interesting is that the Egyptians didn't admire cats because of the color of their fur. They admired them because of what they consistently observed: their remarkable hunting skills, their calm and patient nature, their constant awareness of everything happening around them, and their instinct to protect what mattered. Over time, these qualities became closely associated with Bastet, the Egyptian goddess of protection, the home, and fertility. That doesn't mean the ancient Egyptians believed cats possessed magical powers. Instead, they honored the qualities they saw reflected in the animals themselves. To them, cats were never symbols of fear. They represented protection, order, and life. Perhaps that's why cats came to hold such a special place in both the everyday lives and spiritual beliefs of ancient Egypt. But history has a way of changing the meaning of familiar things. The cats remained exactly as they had always been. It was the stories surrounding them that began to change. And before long, the same animal that had once symbolized protection would become a symbol of something entirely different. Or, the same cat, a different story. Thousands of years have passed. Yet the most remarkable part of this story is that the cat itself has hardly changed at all. If you look at the cat resting in your living room today, you'll probably recognize many of the same behaviors that once earned the admiration of the ancient Egyptians. It still stretches out in warm patches of sunlight. It still quietly watches every movement around it. And it still waits with incredible patience before suddenly pouncing on a toy as if it were chasing real prey. After thousands of years, the behavior of domestic cats has remained remarkably consistent. What changed was the way people interpreted those behaviors. One civilization looked at cats and saw protection. Another would look at those very same instincts and see something to fear. The behavior was the same. Only its meaning had changed in human eyes. And that change in perspective would eventually shape the fate of millions of black cats throughout history. So, what caused such a dramatic shift? How did an animal once admired for its calm, intelligence, and hunting skill become linked to fear and superstition instead? The answer begins in the darkness. Chapter 4.1 What Changed? Imagine living in Europe during the 14th century. It's a night with almost no moonlight. Out of the darkness, a black animal quietly crosses your path. Its eyes suddenly catch the light. It moves almost without making a sound. If you had no understanding of the science behind what you were seeing, what would you think it was? That's how many people in medieval Europe came to see cats. And the strange part is, they still hunted the same way. They were still most active around dawn and dusk. Their eyes still reflected light in the darkness. They still moved with the same quiet precision they always had. Their behavior was almost identical to what it had been thousands of years earlier. What changed was the way people explained those behaviors. As fear, superstition, and religious beliefs spread across parts of medieval Europe, many natural events were no longer understood through careful observation. Instead, they were interpreted through stories, assumptions, and fear of the unknown. Cats, especially those with black fur, gradually became part of those stories. But why did black cats, more than any other cats, become the focus of so many superstitions? That's the next piece of the story. 2. Why were black cats singled out? If nothing about the cats had really changed, why did black cats become symbols of bad luck? No one knows exactly when that idea first began. But many historians believe that during the Middle Ages, as superstition became more widespread, the color black gradually became associated with darkness, death, and things people couldn't explain. As those beliefs spread, the black coat of a cat began to carry a meaning it had never carried before. The irony is, it wasn't because black cats behaved any differently from other cats. It was simply because they blended more easily into the darkness. An animal with black fur, glowing eyes at night, and footsteps so quiet they were almost impossible to hear, could easily seem mysterious to people who had no scientific explanation for what they were seeing. Today, we understand that every one of those traits has a natural biological explanation. But centuries ago, science simply couldn't answer many of those questions. And when knowledge leaves a gap, fear often rushes in to fill it. That fear gradually changed the way people saw black cats. And in time, it changed the fate of millions of them. But here's the fascinating part. Many of the traits that were once mistaken for magic are now some of the best understood features of feline biology. 3. When science explained what once seemed like magic. Today, the very traits that once made cats seem mysterious all have scientific explanations. Let's start with their eyes. In dim light, a cat's eyes often appear to glow. But that light doesn't come from inside the eye. Behind the retina is a reflective layer called the tapetum lucidum. It bounces incoming light back through the retina, allowing cats to make much better use of the limited light available. What once looked supernatural is actually an evolutionary adaptation that helps cats see and hunt more effectively in low-light conditions. The same is true of their nearly silent footsteps. The soft pads on a cat's paws absorb sound, while its flexible body allows each movement to be controlled with remarkable precision. Those aren't magical abilities. They're the natural advantages of an ambush predator. There's another common misconception as well. Cats cannot see in complete darkness. They still need at least a small amount of light. But because their eyes are specially adapted for low-light environments, they can see far better than humans at dawn, dusk, and during the night. There's no magic here. Only anatomy, instinct, and millions of years of evolution. But centuries ago, before science could explain these remarkable adaptations, fear filled the gaps in human understanding. And it told a very different story. 4. The same cat, two different stories. Those stories turned countless cats, especially black cats, into victims of fear and superstition. But here's the fascinating part. Not every culture saw black cats the same way. In Scotland, the appearance of a black cat at someone's doorstep has long been considered by many to be a sign of prosperity. In Japan, black cats have often been associated with good fortune and protection. Among sailors in parts of Britain, there was even a time when some believed that having a black cat aboard a ship would help ensure a safe voyage. These beliefs were passed down through generations. They aren't scientific evidence, but they reveal something remarkable. The very same cat could be seen as a symbol of bad luck in one place, and a symbol of good luck in another. Nothing about the cat had changed. Only the narrative surrounding it had. And those stories have continued to shape the way black cats are treated, even today. Although science has helped us better understand feline behavior and biology, many black cats still face stereotypes that have survived for centuries. That's why the story of black cats isn't just part of history. In many ways, it's still being written today. Chapter 5.1. The story isn't over yet. It's easy to think that the stories surrounding black cats belong to the past. But for many black cats, the effects of those beliefs may not have disappeared completely. Even today, black cats are often part of conversations about pet adoption in animal shelters. For many years, some shelter workers and animal welfare organizations have observed that black cats sometimes appear to wait longer for adoption than cats with other coat colors. Over time, this idea became widely known as black cat syndrome. Several explanations have been suggested. Some people believe that black cats seem less approachable because of their dark coats. Others argue that centuries of superstition may still influence people's decisions, even if they're not consciously aware of it. At first glance, those explanations might sound convincing. But there's an important question we still need to ask. Are these patterns actually supported by evidence? Or have they become another story that's been repeated so often that many people simply assume it's true? Because when researchers began looking beyond personal observations and examining the data more closely, the picture turned out to be far more complicated than many people expected. And that's where the story takes another unexpected turn. 2. What does the evidence really tell us? So, is black cat syndrome actually real? The answer turns out to be far more complicated than many people expect. When researchers began analyzing data from different animal shelters, they found no simple pattern. Some studies have found that black cats may spend more time waiting to be adopted. But many other studies have found little or no meaningful difference compared with cats of other coat colors. Researchers believe the results can vary depending on the country, the region, the individual shelter, and even how each cat is photographed or presented to potential adopters. In other words, the current evidence isn't strong enough to conclude that every black cat faces the same disadvantage when looking for a new home. And that's an important reminder. Real science doesn't force every question into a simple answer. It follows the evidence, even when the evidence is mixed. The encouraging news is that many animal shelters and rescue organizations are actively working to change the way people see black cats. Through public education campaigns and events such as Black Cat Appreciation Day, they're encouraging potential adopters to focus on each cat's personality, behavior, and individual character, not the color of its fur. Perhaps after thousands of years, the story of black cats is finally beginning to be rewritten. Chapter 6.1 The Simplest Truth. After everything we've explored, from genetics to evolution, from history to the stories and beliefs that have shaped the way people see black cats for centuries, the final answer turns out to be surprisingly simple. A black cat is, first and foremost, just a cat. Its black coat exists because of the way certain genes regulate the production of a pigment called eumelanin. Beyond that difference in color, there is no reliable scientific evidence showing that black cats are smarter, more aggressive, more loyal, or any more likely to bring good luck or bad luck than cats with any other coat color. What truly shapes a cat's personality isn't the color of its fur. It's the combination of its genetics, its early experiences, the environment it grows up in, and the relationships it builds throughout its life. That's what makes every cat an individual, not the color of its coat. So, if you really want to understand a black cat, don't start by looking at its fur. Start by watching its behavior, because that's where you'll discover who that cat really is. And in the end, that's the only story the cat has been telling all along. 2. What we should really remember. Perhaps the most fascinating thing about black cats isn't the legends people have created about them. It's that they've lived alongside humans for thousands of years, while the stories we tell about them have constantly changed. There were times when they were admired, times when they were feared. In some places, they became symbols of good fortune. In others, they were seen as signs of bad luck. Yet through all of those changing beliefs, the cats themselves remained exactly what they had always been. If there's one lesson this story leaves us with, it isn't about coat color. It's about how we choose to observe cats. When your cat stretches out in a patch of sunlight, quietly watches the world from a window, or gently rubs its head against your leg, the most important question isn't what its fur is supposed to mean. The better question is, what does this behavior mean to the cat? That's how science helps us understand cats. Not through myths, not through superstition, but by carefully observing what cats actually do and why they do it. And perhaps, once we begin looking at cats that way, we won't just understand black cats better. We'll understand every cat a little better. A black cat has never really changed. Only the way people have seen it, and the stories they've chosen to tell about it. Perhaps the greatest lesson from this journey isn't about coat color at all. It's about the way we choose to understand cats. When we replace myths with observation and superstition with science, we begin to see cats for what they truly are. Not symbols, not omens, just remarkable animals shaped by evolution, instinct, and their own unique experiences. If you share your life with a black cat, what makes them special to you? We'd love to hear your story in the comments. And if you'd like to explore more of the science behind feline behavior, psychology, and communication, be sure to subscribe to Cat Decoded and join us for the next episode. Until next time, keep watching your cat. because every behavior has a story to tell.